The massive crystal windows of the Galactic Military Academy sparkled under the light of three suns. Inside the grand halls of the Xenohistory Department, students of various species hurried to their classes. Some floated, others crawled, and a few even phased through walls, each according to their natural way of movement. In the back of Lecture Hall 7, Blue adjusted his sensory tentacles nervously. As an Andromean, he always felt a bit out of place among his classmates, but today was different. Today was the day when final research assignments would be given out, and his entire academic career depended on it. Next to him, Stone's rocky exterior made soft grinding noises as she shifted in her reinforced seat. The Rigelian was arguably the smartest student in their class, but even she seemed tense. Their friend Wave simply hovered in his water bubble, his liquid form rippling with anticipation. Professor Gray walked into the room, his Centaurian form commanding immediate respect. Unlike his usual enthusiastic entrance, today he moved with deliberate slowness. His four eyes blinked in sequence as he surveyed the class, and his silver skin seemed duller than usual. Today, he began, his translator converting his harmonics into standard galactic speech. We will discuss your final assignment. Each group will investigate a significant event in galactic military history. However, this year, I have decided to focus on a single pivotal moment, viewed from different angles. The professor waved his hand, and a holographic image appeared in the center of the room. It showed a red planet that most students recognized as Mars. But it wasn't Mars' current state as a thriving mining colony. This was Mars from 300 years ago, during what many called the last regulated war. Your assignment, Professor Gray continued, his voice becoming unusually serious, is to investigate why humans, despite being physically weaker than most spacefaring races, are permanently banned from participating in regulated galactic warfare. A wave of murmurs swept through the classroom. Even Wave's liquid form rippled with excitement. Humans were rarely discussed in academic settings, and their ban from regulated warfare was considered a sensitive topic. Blue raised one of his sensory tentacles. Professor, I thought humans were just a minor species from a backwater solar system. Why would their ban be significant enough for a final assignment? The professor's silver skin darkened slightly, a sign of deep emotion among Centaurians. That, Student Blue, is exactly what your research should help you understand. Sometimes, the most significant lessons come from unexpected sources. As the professor assigned research groups, Blue found himself paired with Stone and Wave. They were given access to the Academy's restricted archives and a special permission to conduct interviews with veterans, if they could find any willing to talk. Remember, Professor Gray warned as he handed them their access cards, many records from this period are classified. Many veterans refuse to discuss it. Your challenge will be finding the truth hidden behind the silence. After class, the three friends gathered in the library's anti-gravity study pod. Stone pulled up the initial data on their holographic display while Wave's water bubble rippled with excitement. Look at this, Stone said, her crystalline voice filled with curiosity. Humans participated in only one regulated warfare campaign. Just one. And after that, the Galactic Council didn't just ban them. They created an entirely new classification of species considered incompatible with civilized warfare. Blue extended his sensory tentacles toward the data stream, absorbing the information directly. That's strange. Most species have to prove themselves dangerous through multiple campaigns before getting banned. What could humans have done in just one campaign? Wave's liquid form swirled thoughtfully. The professor's reaction was unusual too. Did you notice how his skin darkened when discussing humans? I've never seen him show such strong emotion before. As they dove deeper into their initial research, they found more questions than answers. References to something called the Mars Incident kept appearing, but the details were always redacted. Casualty reports were sealed. Battle analyses were classified. Whatever happened on Mars, Blue said finally, it was big enough to change how the galaxy views warfare. And I think that's why Professor Gray gave us this assignment. He wants us to understand something important. Stone's crystalline surface reflected the library's soft light as she spoke. Then we better not disappoint him. Where should we start? Blue's tentacles waved thoughtfully. I say we begin with public records and work our way up. Something tells me this assignment is going to be more than just another research project. Little did they know just how right Blue was, or how their investigation would change their understanding of not just humans, but of warfare itself. 3 days into their research, the library's anti-gravity study pod had become their second home. Holographic displays surrounded them, filled with historical records, news reports, and military documents, most of them frustratingly incomplete. Blue's tentacles moved rapidly between data streams, his natural ability to process multiple information sources at once proving invaluable. Here's something interesting, he said. Before the Mars incident, humans were actually considered harmless. Their weapons were primitive, their ships were slow, and their bodies were fragile. Wave's liquid form bubbled with confusion. That doesn't make sense. Why would the Galactic Council even allow them to participate in regulated warfare if they were so weak? Stone's crystalline surface flickered as she processed this information. She pulled up another document, this one showing comparative species data. Look at this. Humans can't regrow limbs like the salamandrians, they can't absorb energy like the stellarians, and they can't even survive in space without help. They're practically defenseless compared to most species. The study pod's door slid open, and a maintenance drone floated in. The three friends quickly switched their displays to show basic historical texts instead of their research. Even though they had permission to study this topic, they had learned to be careful. Too many other students had asked questions about their research already. After the drone left, Blue brought up a partially redacted battle report. Here's something odd. In their first and only regulated warfare campaign, humans were put against the Draconian Empire. The Draconians had won their last 12 campaigns. It was considered an honor just to fight them. Wait, Wave interrupted, his water bubble forming a question mark shape. They put a primitive species against the Draconians. That's like putting a space slug against a stellar warrior. It doesn't make sense. Stone moved closer to the display, her rocky form casting angular shadows. Unless they wanted to teach humans a lesson, show them their place in the galactic order. They spent the next few hours digging deeper. Most of the actual battle records were classified, but they found scattered references in public documents. News reports from the time showed initial amusement at human participation, then confusion, and finally, fear. Look at these casualty reports, Blue said, his tentacles trembling slightly. At least, the parts we can see. The numbers don't make sense. The Draconians had better ships, better weapons, better everything. But these numbers. Stone interrupted him, her voice unusually quiet. I found something in the medical archives. Apparently, after the Mars incident, the Galactic Council created new categories of battle trauma. They had to make new words to describe what happened. Wave moved his liquid form closer to the display. I don't understand. Regulated warfare has strict rules. There are protocols. How could humans cause new types of trauma while following the rules? Their research was interrupted by a soft chime. Someone was requesting entry to their study pod. The door slid open to reveal Professor Gray, his silver skin reflecting the soft glow of the holographic displays. I see you've been busy, he said, his 4 eyes scanning their research. Found anything interesting? Blue started to answer, but Stone spoke first. Professor, why were humans allowed to fight the Draconians? The power difference was too great. It wasn't fair. The professor's skin darkened slightly. Fair, he said quietly. Yes, everyone thought it wasn't fair. To the humans. That's why it was approved. The Galactic Council thought it would be a simple lesson in humility. He paused, his skin growing darker still. They were right about it being a lesson, but not in the way they expected. Before they could ask more questions, the professor turned to leave. At the door, he stopped. You might want to look into Captain Spark. They were there, at Mars. They saw everything. His skin had almost turned black now. But be careful what you ask. Some memories are better left buried. After the professor left, the three friends sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Wave spoke, his liquid form perfectly still for once. Did anyone else notice? The professor's skin only got that dark once before, when he first gave us this assignment. Blue's tentacles waved thoughtfully. I think we need to find this Captain Spark. Whatever happened on Mars, it was big enough to scare a Centaurian professor centuries later. Stone's crystalline surface reflected the countless data streams around them. The question is, are we ready to learn the truth? Finding Captain Spark proved harder than expected. The retired Pleiadian commander had moved to the outer rings of the galaxy after the Mars incident, far from the bustling core worlds. It took Blue, Stone, and Wave 2 weeks of careful messaging and 3 missed appointments before they finally got their meeting. The small asteroid home where Captain Spark lived spun slowly in space, its artificial gravity barely strong enough to keep them grounded. As they approached the airlock, Wave's water bubble shimmered nervously. Maybe we should turn back, he said. The captain canceled 3 times already. They clearly don't want to talk. Stone's crystalline form caught the light of a distant star. We came too far to give up now. Besides, Professor Gray wouldn't have mentioned the captain if it wasn't important. The airlock hissed open, revealing a dimly lit corridor. At its end stood Captain Spark, their Pleiadian form glowing faintly in the darkness. The captain's natural bioluminescence, once bright enough to guide ships through space, had faded to a mere flicker. "Students," the captain said, their voice rough from lack of use. "Come to dig up old bones, have you?" Despite the harsh words, they stepped aside, letting the 3 friends enter. The captain's home was filled with old military memorabilia, medals, uniforms, and battle maps from various campaigns. But one wall was completely bare, save for a single sealed container marked with warning symbols. Blue's tentacles twitched as he noticed the container's date. It was from the Mars incident. The captain followed his gaze and laughed without humor. "Yes, that's what you came for, isn't it? My memories of Mars, of humans." Stone moved forward, her rocky form casting long shadows. "Captain, we need to understand. Why were humans banned? What happened on Mars?" The captain's glow flickered erratically. "Do you know why I live out here, away from the core worlds? Because out here, no one asks about Mars. No one expects me to remember." They paused, their light dimming further. "But maybe it's time someone remembered. The young should know why we fear them." Wave formed a respectful viewing surface, ready to record the captain's words. But Spark waved him away. "No recordings. Some things shouldn't be preserved. Just listen." The captain moved to the sealed container, their hands shaking slightly as they touched it. "I commanded the 3rd Fleet in the Mars campaign. It was supposed to be simple. Let the humans fight bravely, lose honorably, and learn their place in the galaxy. We even gave them outdated ships and weapons. To make it fair, we said." Blue's tentacles curled with interest. But something went wrong. Wrong. The captain's glow pulsed strongly for a moment. No, everything went exactly as planned. At first, the humans fought with their inferior ships and weapons. They followed every rule of regulated warfare. They were perfect gentlemen, as they would say. Stone's crystalline surface reflected the captain's fading light. Then what changed? They did. Or maybe they didn't change. Maybe we just saw what they really were. The captain's voice grew quieter. "We thought we were teaching them about warfare. Instead, they taught us about war. Real war. The kind our ancestors fought before regulated warfare was invented." Wave's liquid form rippled with confusion. "But they followed the rules. You said so yourself." The captain's glow flickered like a dying star. "Yes, they followed every rule. That's what makes it so terrifying. They didn't need to break the rules to show us." They stopped, their light almost completely dark now. "Show you what?" Blue asked softly. What real warfare looks like. What happens when a species fights not for honor or resources or political power, but for survival. Even when it wasn't about survival. They fought every battle like it was their last, like their entire species depended on it. The captain turned away from the container, their glow strengthening slightly. You should go now. If you want to know more, look up the term Pyrrhic victory. Humans didn't invent it, but they perfected it. They showed us that sometimes the cost of winning is too high. As they left the asteroid home, Wave noticed something odd about the sealed container. Did you see the warning label? He asked. It didn't say classified or restricted. It said, never again. Blue's tentacles waved thoughtfully. I think we're starting to understand why humans are feared, but we still don't know what actually happened on Mars. Stone looked back at the slowly spinning asteroid. Something tells me we're about to find out, and maybe wish we hadn't. After their meeting with Captain Spark, the three friends spent several days reviewing everything they had learned. The Academy's restricted archives became their permanent residence, much to the annoyance of the library's maintenance drones. Blue's tentacles moved slowly through old battle footage, most of it heavily censored. Look at this, he said. The first day of the Mars campaign. The humans actually welcomed the Draconian ships with a message of friendship. Wave rippled his liquid form closer to sea. Friendship, while preparing for war? That doesn't make sense. Stone's crystalline surface caught the light as she accessed another file. Actually, it does. According to this report, humans had a tradition of showing respect to their opponents. They called it military courtesy. The footage showed human ships, clearly outdated and inferior, forming neat lines as the mighty Draconian fleet approached Mars. The humans had followed proper protocol perfectly, even offering the traditional galactic salute of peace before combat. The Draconians were impressed. Blue continued, his tentacles pointing to another record. They noted in their initial reports that humans showed admirable discipline and proper respect for superior forces. Wave formed a questioning ripple. But that's good, right? Why would that lead to humans being banned? Stone pulled up the next set of records. Because it wasn't real. The humans weren't being respectful. They were gathering information. Every courteous exchange, every formal communication. They were studying the Draconians, learning their patterns. The battle footage continued, showing the first exchanges of fire. The humans lost several ships quickly, exactly as everyone had expected. Their weapons barely dented the Draconian shields. Their ships were too slow to dodge the advanced targeting systems. Watch this part, Blue said, his tentacles trembling slightly. This is where it starts to change. The footage showed a human ship, heavily damaged and drifting in space. Following regulated warfare protocols, the Draconians moved in to accept its surrender. But the human ship didn't surrender. Instead, it kept fighting, its weapons still firing even as it fell apart. Stone's surface flickered with realization. They weren't trying to win those early battles. They were learning the Draconians' rescue protocols. Wave moved closer to the display. But why would they? His liquid form stilled suddenly. Oh no. Blue nodded grimly. Yes. The next time a human ship was critically damaged, the Draconians moved in to accept surrender. But this time, the footage showed another damaged human ship. As the Draconian rescue ship approached, the human vessel suddenly came alive, firing all weapons at point-blank range. Both ships were destroyed in the explosion. That's against every rule of civilized combat, Wave said, his water bubble churning with distress. You don't attack rescue ships. Everyone knows that. Stone's crystalline form seemed to darken. Technically, it wasn't against the rules. The humans never actually signaled surrender. The Draconians assumed they would surrender because that's what any civilized species would do. They found more footage, showing how the pattern repeated. The humans lost ships, yes, but each loss seemed to teach them something. They studied Draconian shield frequencies, weapons ranges, even their command structures. It's like they were using their own defeats as weapons, Blue said quietly. Every ship they lost gave them more information, more advantages. Wave formed a troubled pattern. But they still lost those battles. Their ships were destroyed, their crews. That's what Captain Spark meant, Stone interrupted. About humans fighting like every battle was for survival. They weren't trying to win battles. They were willing to lose them to win the war. Blue's tentacles waved thoughtfully. And this was just the beginning. We still haven't found the records of what happened next, what made the Galactic Council create that never again warning. The library's lights dimmed, signaling the end of another day. As they prepared to leave, Stone noticed something in the corner of one footage frame. A human message, transmitted just before their ship exploded. For Earth and Mars, whatever it takes. Wave's liquid form shivered. Whatever it takes. What could that mean? Blue started packing up their research materials. I think we're about to find out. And I'm starting to understand why Captain Spark lies alone on that asteroid. The next batch of records they found changed everything. Blue, Stone, and Wave sat in stunned silence as they watched footage from the middle phase of the Mars campaign. The library's holograms showed scenes that made even the maintenance drones stop and stare. I don't understand, Wave said, his liquid form barely moving. The humans are attacking with damaged ships. Ships that shouldn't even fly. How are they still fighting? Stone's crystalline surface reflected the chaotic scenes. They stripped their life support systems to power their weapons. They removed safety systems to gain more speed. They're killing themselves to fight better. The footage showed human ships, held together by emergency patches, ramming into draconian supply lines. Their crews worked in spacesuits because they had removed the air from their ships to prevent fires. Every resource, even their own comfort and safety, was turned into a weapon. Blue's tentacles moved through more data streams. Look at their combat patterns. No species has ever fought like this. The Draconians can't predict their movements because the humans aren't following any known strategy. Because they're not trying to win properly, Stone said quietly. In regulated warfare, you're supposed to fight for position, for advantage. The humans, they're just trying to hurt the enemy, no matter the cost to themselves. They found psychological reports from Draconian commanders. The mighty warriors, undefeated for centuries, were experiencing something new. Fear, not of defeat. They were still winning most battles, but of the way humans fought. Wave brought up another recording. This is from a Draconian medical ship. Listen. The recording played a human transmission. You have better ships, better weapons, better shields, but we have nothing left to lose. Do you understand what that means? Blue's tentacles curled in thought, but they did have something to lose. Their ships, their lives. Why would they say that? Stone's surface flickered as she processed a newly declassified document. Here's why. The humans knew they were expected to lose, but instead of accepting that, they decided to make victory so costly that it felt like defeat. More footage played. Humans had started targeting Draconian repair yards, forcing expensive ships to fight without proper maintenance. They attacked in waves, wearing down shield generators through sheer persistence. They broadcast the sounds of their crews singing battle songs as their ships fell apart. This isn't warfare anymore, Wave said, his form rippling with distress. The humans turned it into something else, something older. Stone pulled up ancient historical records. They're fighting like their ancestors did before they had space travel. Every battle is treated like it's a fight for survival, even when it isn't. The records showed more disturbing patterns. Humans started using their own destroyed ships as weapons, turning debris fields into deadly traps. They developed suicide tactics that sacrificed entire crews to disable larger enemy vessels. They fought harder when they were losing than when they were winning. Blue accessed a Draconian commander's private log. They're not fighting for victory anymore. They're fighting to teach us a lesson. Every ship we destroy makes them more dangerous, not less. How do you defeat an enemy that turns their own defeats into weapons? Wave's liquid form shuddered. Now I understand what Captain Spark meant about Pyrrhic victories. The Draconians won almost every battle, but each victory cost them more than they could afford. Stone finished. The humans made winning feel worse than losing. They found the final casualty reports. The Draconians had lost fewer ships and crews, but their morale was shattered. Their confidence, built over centuries of regulated warfare, had been broken in just a few months. Blue's tentacles moved slowly through the last pieces of footage. The humans lost the campaign, just as everyone expected. But they changed everything. Nobody wanted to fight them again, not because they were strong, but because they were willing to pay any price to hurt their enemies. Stone said. They turned regulated warfare into real war. Wave formed a troubled pattern. There's still something missing. This is terrible, yes, but why the never again mourning? What happened in the final battle that was so much worse? Blue started to answer, but stopped as a new file appeared in their search results. The file name was simple: The Last Day of Mars. The file about the last day of Mars took 3 hours to decrypt. When it finally opened, the footage made Wave's liquid form freeze completely solid for the first time in his life. Stone's crystalline surface dulled to a dark gray, and Blue's tentacles curled tightly against his body. This can't be right, Wave said after he managed to return to his liquid state. The humans were losing. They had only a few ships left. The campaign was practically over. The footage showed the final hours of the Mars campaign. The remaining human ships had gathered around Mars, barely a dozen vessels against the mighty Draconian armada. According to all military logic, it was time to surrender. Play the human commander's last transmission, Stone said quietly, her voice unusually flat. The hologram flickered to life, showing a tired human face. To the Draconian fleet, you have fought well and victory is yours. We understand now that we are not ready for regulated warfare. We surrender. But first, let us show you why we were never meant to play war as a game. Blue's tentacles moved through the data streams that followed. They shut down their weapons. The Draconians moved in to accept their surrender, following all proper protocols. The footage continued. The human ships, their weapons offline, began moving in strange patterns. The Draconians, following regulated warfare rules, held their fire during the surrender process. There, Stone pointed. That's when everything changed. The human ships suddenly accelerated, not toward the Draconian fleet, but toward their own damaged vessels from previous battles. The debris field around Mars had been growing for months, full of destroyed human ships. Wave's form rippled with sudden understanding. They weren't really surrendering. They were getting into position. The footage showed what happened next. The humans had spent months letting their destroyed ships drift into careful positions. When the final ships joined them, they created a crude but massive ring around Mars. Then, using their last remaining power, they detonated their reactors. The chain reaction, Blue said, his tentacles trembling. They planned this from the beginning. Every destroyed ship was placed exactly where they needed it. The explosion created a wave of debris that expanded outward from Mars. The Draconian fleet, caught off guard by the false surrender, couldn't react in time. Their mighty ships, built for direct combat, weren't designed to handle thousands of small impacts from every direction at once. Stone's surface flickered as she analyzed the damage reports. The humans lost every ship, but they crippled 90% of the Draconian fleet. Not by fighting them, by turning their own defeats into one final weapon. The footage showed the aftermath. The proud Draconian armada, reduced to limping wrecks by a debris field created from their own victories. Every human ship they had destroyed over the months had become part of this last terrible trap. Now we know why Captain Spark lies alone on that asteroid, Wave said. The humans didn't just lose. They showed everyone that losing could be more dangerous than winning. Blue accessed the final report from the Galactic Council. Listen to this. The humans have demonstrated that they cannot separate regulated warfare from total warfare. Their inability to accept loss without extracting maximum damage makes them incompatible with civilized combat. Stone brought up the last piece of footage, the human commander's final words before detonating their reactor. Remember this day. Remember that humans don't play at war. We either fight for real, or we don't fight at all. The Galactic Council banned humans the next day, Wave said, not because they were too strong, but because they turned warfare itself into a weapon. Blue finished. They proved that following all the rules of regulated warfare didn't make war any less terrible. Stone's crystalline form had finally regained some of its color. One last thing. Look at the date on that "Never Again" warning we saw in Captain Sparks' home. The date matched exactly with the human commander's final transmission. The warning wasn't about the humans' actions. It was about ever thinking war could be regulated, could be civilized, could be safe. Blue began closing the files. I think we understand now. The humans weren't banned to protect them from warfare. They were banned to protect warfare from them. Wave finished quietly. From what it could really be. The day of their final presentation arrived too quickly. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Military Academy was packed with students, teachers, and even a few military observers. Blue, Stone, and Wave had spent weeks preparing, but they still felt nervous. Professor Gray sat in the front row, his silver skin shifting with subtle patterns of anticipation. Behind him, in the shadows of the back row, a faint glow revealed Captain Sparks' presence. The old veteran had come, despite their earlier reluctance. Blue's tentacles moved smoothly as he began their presentation. We were asked to study why humans were banned from regulated warfare. We expected to find stories of advanced weapons or superior tactics. Instead, we found something much more important. Stone stepped forward, her crystalline form projecting images from the Mars campaign. Humans weren't banned because they were too powerful. They were banned because they showed us a truth we had forgotten. The images showed the progression of the Mars campaign, from the formal opening battles to the final devastating trap. Wave's liquid form rippled as he explained each phase, showing how the humans had turned their own defeats into weapons. The Draconians won every major battle, Wave said, but the humans won something else. They won knowledge. They learned that regulated warfare had made us forget what real war was like. Stone displayed the casualty reports. In regulated warfare, losses are accepted as part of the game. Ships are destroyed, crews are captured, and everyone follows the rules. But humans showed us that real war isn't about following rules. It's about survival. Blue brought up the final footage from Mars. Look at their tactics. They didn't fight to win battles. They fought to make victory so costly that no one would want to fight them again. They turned their own destruction into a weapon. The audience stirred uncomfortably as they watched the footage. Even species that had never seen combat before could understand the horror of what the humans had done. Not breaking the rules, but showing why the rules themselves were a dangerous illusion. The humans lost the campaign. Stone continued, her voice steady. But they taught the galaxy a lesson that changed everything. They showed us that you can't regulate war. You can't make it safe or civilized or predictable. Wave displayed the final transmission from the human commander. They proved that any species pushed far enough will abandon rules, protocols, and honor. The humans just showed they were willing to go there first. Blue's tentacles moved to the final slides. The Galactic Council didn't ban humans to punish them. They banned them because humans reminded everyone of what warfare really means, what it costs, what it does to those who wage it. In the back of the hall, Captain Sparks' glow pulsed briefly. Stone noticed and added, "The veterans who fought humans don't fear their weapons or their tactics. They fear the mirror humans held up to regulated warfare itself." The humans showed us that we had turned war into a sport, Wave said, his form rippling with emotion. They reminded us that real war isn't about honor or rules or victory. It's about survival, about doing whatever it takes to protect what matters. Blue displayed their final conclusion. Humans weren't banned because they were too dangerous to fight against. They were banned because they were too dangerous to fight with, because they reminded us of what we used to be, what we could become again. The hall was silent when they finished. Professor Gray's skin had darkened to a deep gray, but his eyes showed approval. Captain Sparks' glow had strengthened, as if some long-carried burden had lightened. Stone made their final point. The humans are still out there, still watching. Their ban from regulated warfare isn't a punishment, it's a warning. A reminder that some games shouldn't be played, because they might stop being games. As they left the hall after their presentation, Blue noticed a new message in their research files. It was from Earth, sent centuries ago, but only now declassified. It contained just 4 words. War is never regulated. Wave's liquid form shimmered thoughtfully. Do you think we'll ever see humans in space again? Yes, Stone said quietly, but not in regulated warfare. Because now we understand. Humans don't fight wars. Blue finished the thought. They survive them. And that makes all the difference.